privilege to rise in this place and speak to this important piece of legislation, Bill C-25, an act to amend the Canada Elections Act. There's a lot to look at in this piece of legislation. This Bill C-25 contains many supportable and, frankly, some long overdue measures. It includes long called for amendments to the Canada Elections Act to deter tactics like those used by the longest ballot committee, amendments that the Conservative Party has been asking for a long time. It strengthens protections against foreign interference, including in leadership and nomination contests. The bill makes changes to the third-party regime as well, which are an improvement, we believe, to the current regime. But there is a stumbling block here, though, and that is that the Conservative Party has been raising issues around foreign interference for years. This isn't new. We've known about this. The government has known about this. Members of our caucus and former candidates and their families have been targets of foreign interference, and we have been talking about this for years. Yet the Liberals tuned us out. They refused to take us seriously, and now here we are. I welcome the government's legislation to strengthen our electoral system, but I ask, why did it take so long? For instance, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party of Canada stood by for years while foreign interference literally ran rampant in our country, and frankly, it still does. Nothing has changed. This is a monumental issue facing our country, and the Liberals have dragged their feet in dealing with it. I hope this bill will turn the tide on this generational issue in our nation, but I do have some doubts. And why do I have these doubts? Well, because it's taken so much and so long to actually implement a strategy to bring about this needed change. Conservatives have long called for strengthened protections against foreign interference, including during leadership and nomination contests where interference has proven to be pervasive. Foreign interference is a serious issue, one that undermines the integrity of our electoral system and one that threatens to harm and does harm to Canadians, especially those who belong to various diaspora groups all across our country. This government, these Liberals, including this Prime Minister, have been incredibly lackadaisical on the issue, and I have a hard time believing in their sudden change of heart and their sincerity. And I'll use the example, Mr. Speaker, of Paul Chang. Mr. Chang was the Liberal Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville, who was, up until the end of March last year, the Liberal candidate in last April's election. Chang, a former police officer, suggested to Chinese language media at a news conference in January of 2025 that people could hand over a political opponent of his, the Conservative candidate Joe Tay, to the PRC consulate in Toronto for a cash reward offered by Hong Kong police. Mr. Tay, who was the Conservative candidate in Don Valley North, already had a bounty on his head and an arrest warrant issued by Hong Kong for making, of all things, pro-democracy comments here in Canada. According to the CBC, this bounty was worth nearly 200,000 Canadian dollars. As if these comments weren't bad enough, Mr. Tay testified at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee in December of 2025, a committee that I've sat on for a long time now, that his home was surveilled by a vehicle parked outside his driveway during the campaign. He said that his volunteers were victims of intimidation and harassment on the campaign trail, particularly by a man who followed them around in a trench coat. Tay also testified that the RCMP informed him that it wouldn't be safe for him to continue campaigning. Imagine that, Mr. Speaker, a Canadian in Canada running for political office, and the top police force in our country informs that candidate that he should withdraw from campaigning because of his own safety concerns triggered by an aggressive foreign government. Mr. Tay went on to tell the committee that while his life was exponentially more danger because of a direct Chinese Communist Party threat to our democracy through the elections, and the MPs or the leaders were promoting it at the same time, it almost gave approval to the people who wanted to hurt me. It was like a green light. I agree with Mr. Tay. It's almost as if the interference was sanctioned by the governing party of the day. What is even more concerning about this is the fact that the Prime Minister stood by Paul Chang for several days and protected his candidate instead of doing the right thing. This was politics and party over principle and national security. At a press conference in Vaughan, the Prime Minister called Mr. Chang a person of integrity who had served his community for 25 years. He also said that Chang had his confidence and dismissed the error because Chang himself had family in Hong Kong. He accepted Chang's apology and was ready to move on. This Prime Minister was ready to move forward with Chang on the ballot while he was actively participating in foreign interference. And that is not serious leadership. Paul Chang eventually had to withdraw from the race after enough pressure was applied, but why did it take so long, and why was so much pressure needed to do the right thing? That should really alarm everyone in this chamber, and indeed all Canadians. There were seemingly no repercussions. So not only did the Prime Minister fail to take the moral high ground by willfully and knowingly defending his candidate, but Paul Chang was even welcomed back at the Liberal Party's recent policy convention in Montreal last weekend. Well, that's a little bit telling, isn't it, Mr. Speaker? Since this fiasco, the Prime Minister also cultivated deeper ties with the People's Republic of China, despite their many various violations of human rights at home and abroad, raising eyebrows everywhere. Meanwhile, the current Liberal Member of Parliament for Markham-Unionville is fighting at committee with human rights advocates over whether or not the Chinese Communist Party uses forced labor, suggesting that if you haven't witnessed forced labor or slavery in China personally, then it mustn't exist. These are very strange comments, Mr. Speaker. A few days after these strange and shocking comments, the Prime Minister attended a Liberal Party fundraiser that was co-hosted by the member for Markham-Unionville, praising the values of that member, saying he is a results-oriented individual and he is choosing the path that creates opportunities for Canadians. Unbelievable. The Prime Minister not only praised that member, but refused to clarify his position on human rights in the People's Republic of China. Canadians deserve to know his real position. We know the Prime Minister didn't just raise the issue of human rights on his trip to Beijing in January with his new MP from Markham-Unionville, and why not? By refusing to take a stand, the Prime Minister is abandoning Canada's human rights commitments and putting our people further at risk by tying us closer to a communist government that seeks to harm our citizens and meddles in our elections. This is a threatening foreign government that has meddled in our elections and has sought to harm our people, even putting 2 of them in jail. Why has it taken so long to address this? So one riding, Markham-Unionville, 2 candidates, Paul Chang, who encourages the kidnapping and potential deportation of a Canadian citizen who already had a bounty on him issued by a hostile foreign regime, and the current sitting member of that same riding defending China's human rights track record at committee. What has the Prime Minister done? Well, he's protected, defended, stood by and praised both of these individuals. Both were at his party's convention last weekend. He's cozied up to the communist regime in China, indicating that this new relationship is part of his idea of a new world order. And we expect him to lead the charge to protect Canada from foreign interference. He's had several chances, and he's blown them. Conservatives have been speaking out about this issue for years. The Liberals have done nothing, and their track record suggests they're completely indifferent to this issue. At the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, we also heard from Nathalie Drouin, the intelligence advisor to the Prime Minister and member of the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol Panel, as a witness on our foreign interference study. She emphasized time and again that the 45th general election was not compromised and that the election was carried out securely and with confidence. Great, that's what we expect, but what Mrs. Drouin refused to answer is to what degree the election was interfered or tampered with. Canadians are still left guessing how deep and how bad. Now, no one in this House doubts the overall outcome of the election results. The Liberals won a minority government. That's not what we're talking about. What I am talking about is the fact that the National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister refused to disclose how many Paul Chang and Joe Tay type incidents there actually were. Were other candidates targeted? Were other volunteers, candidates' families, stalked, watched, or intimidated? We don't know because the person entrusted to be the watchdog won't say. And I guess now we'll never know that she's been made the ambassador to France, a political position offered to a bureaucrat. Nice work if you can get it. This is very concerning. We know that this has happened in the past. My former colleague from Steveston, Richmond East, Mr. Kenny Chiu, lost his seat in 2021 and immediately brought up concerns around foreign interference from the People's Republic of China government. Our leader at the time, immediately after the 2021 election, went public with concerns around foreign interference. No one, and many of them are still here on the government benches, took us seriously. But look at us now, some 6 or 7 years later, and we're still talking about this. And Mr. Speaker, the buck doesn't stop with the regime, the PRC in China. Unfortunately, it carries on with Iran. There are currently up to 700 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps members living in Canada right now. These are people who belong to the same Iranian government that killed 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents in January of 2020. It took this same Liberal government over 4 years to list the IRGC as a terrorist group, and to date, they've deported only one of the 700 operatives living here in Canada. Foreign terrorists conducting illegal terrorist business here in Canada at a time when thousands of Persian Canadians are protesting for freedom and the fall of the Ayatollah. This Liberal government has shown, through the deportation of only one IRGC operative, not only that they cannot keep Canadians safe from foreign interference and terrorism, but they are shockingly late to the serious issue of foreign interference. Why are these terrorist operatives still here? Why are they allowed to enter the country in the first place? These are questions Conservatives have asked the government time and again, and we've never been given a compelling response. Global News reported on April 2nd that an IRGC official lied to get into Canada by using false names. He even sued to have his mother allowed to immigrate to Canada. Why is he still here? These are foreign operatives here in our country to do harm, to influence, to manipulate, to raise money illegally and intimidate diaspora communities. They are not here to contribute to Canadian society. This is a national security threat and a serious violation of foreign interference principles. Conservatives have proposed that all IRGC terrorists be expelled from Canada, but the Liberals don't agree and simply refuse to act. Speaker, I'm sorry, I can't even believe this is a debate I can't even believe I have to utter these words here in the House of Commons. Common sense would suggest that foreign terrorists, and I can't believe I have to say this, foreign terrorists shouldn't be allowed to live freely and openly and do their business in our country. I cannot believe that there's anybody in this House that would disagree with that. It's absurd. The government has a mandate to protect the people of Canada, and they won't take the first step forward in doing so. It's shameful. Conservatives have been here from the beginning, advocating in this very chamber and in committee for stronger safeguards and concrete action to prevent these very same issues from happening. The government lauded their talking points and comms lines. We warned of issues arising because of their inability or unwillingness to act, and here we are speaking to the legislation on the same issues we've been talking about over and over and over again for years. Why has it taken so long? The Prime Minister cannot bring himself to condemn, much less punish, his candidate who encourages the kidnapping and deportation of the political candidate of his political adversary, or his new MP who defends China's use of forced and slave labor. The Liberals are allowing IRGC terrorists to enter, stay in, and live freely in our country. They will not expel them. They expect the opposition to believe they're serious about foreign interference now? Come on, give me a break. Foreign interference and the government's response to it is eroding Canadian democracy. As the Macdonald-Laurier Institute published this past January, when Chinese interference operations in Canada is unaddressed, regional partners draw conclusions about whether Canada can be counted on as a serious security partner. That means our allies are no longer taking us seriously. That means they're going to be reluctant to share information and intelligence with us. That puts Canadians at risk. This is not behavior conducive of a responsible government. And Mr. Speaker, if the government doesn't take this issue seriously, how can we expect our allies and or for that matter, even our adversaries to take us seriously? And Mr. Speaker, that's not all. Liberals standing on the sideline and watching as the Conservatives lead the charge on strengthening our elections doesn't just stop with foreign interference, but it also speaks to the lead we've taken on dealing with the longest ballot committee, who are nothing more than self-indulgent limelight seekers. The Conservative Party has long called for amendments to the Elections Act to deter the actions of the longest ballot committee. We welcome the amendments made by the government, but I still question why it has taken so long. We've called for actions to counter the disruptions of this group that seeks not only to disrupt, but to manipulate and harm our elections by seemingly targeting very, very specific ridings. You cannot claim to be a defender of democracy when you frustrate voters and poll workers and make a mockery of our electoral system to benefit yourself. And it's interesting, Mr. Speaker. This all stems, and I've been here for 7 elections. This is the 7th term that I've served in the House of Commons. For the first 3 or 4, I had to come up with a $1,000 deposit that was refunded to me if I acted in accordance with the Elections Canada Act, behaved as a responsible candidate, and earned a reasonable number of votes. This is to prevent frivolous candidacies. It was put in place for a reason. Now, the individual who challenged that in court in 2017 just happens to be the same person who is now the head of the longest ballot committee. So this shows you that this is not some spontaneous thing that's happened. This has been a well thought out and orchestrated attempt to make a mockery of our electoral process. To use, it's fine to put a protestor's name on, a protester to run an election and put their name on the ballot, but it's not right to turn the ballot itself into the protest. This is a ridiculous set of logic. And what's disheartening about it is that the government of the day had every opportunity to actually appeal that decision and protect the integrity of our electoral system, but they didn't. It's amazing the things that this government will actually fight in courts and the things they let slide. Opening up access to medical assistance in dying? Sure, we won't challenge that in court. If you unlawful use of or invocation of the Emergencies Act, heck, we're going to take that all the way to the Supreme Court. This is just another example of Liberals not understanding the consequences of the decisions or lack of decisions that they make. So now we're scrambling to find ways to circumvent the longest ballot committee's protest, using the ballot itself as the protest. And those changes are now in this piece of legislation, requiring more poll workers, requiring more scrutineering, requiring more effort, expense, all of the above, when all they simply had to do was appeal that decision and explain to Canadians why a responsible government would protect the integrity of our electoral system. Yet, Mr. Speaker, again, here we are. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, and I'll just say this. It's been too long since we've actually had responsible decisions made in this place to protect the integrity of our institutions, to protect the Elections Act, to make sure that not only the overall results of the election are valid, but to make sure that the results in every single constituency, every single electoral district, every single one of those must be accurate and the right person, the correct person, without interference. The voters' will must be manifest in that process. The nominations can't be suspect. The leadership can't be suspect, and the elections can't be suspect, and I look forward to this bill coming to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee.